Coming up on Tech News today, LG buys some of WebOS from HP. Also, Samsung announces a huge phone. And Google take it on Spotify. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Monday, February 25th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell last year's gadgets. Find out what your used iPad, MacBook, iPhone, Galaxy S, and other smartphones are worth at Gazelle.com. And by Lantronix, maker of the Xprint server. Print from your iPad, iPhone, or any iOS device to virtually any printer. For more information, visit xprintserver.com/twit and enter the code TWIT to receive free shipping on your order. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, blog, portfolio, and now an online store. Check out their new commerce solution so you can start selling stuff immediately. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT2. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show we keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each time with the top 10 stories of the day in the news views. Nokia announced a rasher of new Lumias at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. The Lumia 720 had a 4.3-inch screen, 512 megabytes of RAM, and is expected to sell for just €249 starting in Q2. The 4-inch Lumia 520 is the cheapest Lumia yet at an expected €139. Nokia also launched two feature phones. The Nokia 105 running Series 30 OS will sell for a mere €15 unsubsidized starting in Q1, and the Nokia 301 running Series 40 OS will sell for €65 starting in Q2. Nokia also announced its mapping and location-based service suites will be available on multiple platforms and open to third-party developers.
Samsung is hosting an event in New York on March 14th where it's expected they'll reveal the details on their next Galaxy smartphone. The news was announced via a tweet from Samsung Mobile's account. The event is slated to start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and a teaser on the invite simply reads, "Come and meet the new Galaxy."
Apparently, WebOS is like Freddy Krueger or Jason Voorhees. You just can't kill any of them. Get this, LG has picked up WebOS from HP with plans to power LG televisions. LG gets WebOS's websites, engineers, and its source code. Remember, folks, if you want to kill WebOS, you'll have to chop off its head, bury the body in a tomb, then set the head on fire in that order.
Cards. Barnes & Noble issued a warning that losses in its Nook Media division will bring down revenue for fiscal 2013. The New York Times reports its sources say the bookstore will move away from making hardware like the Nook tablet and focus on selling digital content. Bloomberg reports Barnes & Noble founder and chairman Leonard Riggio wants to buy the consumer business back and spin out the Nook unit.
Last May, MasterCard got deeper into the digital payment space with its PayPass wallet services. And today, the company announced that PayPass wallet services has a new name called MasterPass. MasterPass will roll out to consumers in Canada and Australia before the end of March. A U.S. launch is slated for the spring, a U.K. launch to follow in the summer. MasterPass lets users create free accounts and pay for purchases on certain partner websites using the identity and credit card and shipping information they've stored in their MasterPass wallets.
Sony's announced its Xperia Tablet Z is coming to the United States with a starting price of $499. The Tablet Z has a 10.1-inch 1920 by 1200 display, uses a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core processor, and runs Android 4.1 with an update to 4.2 coming up. The $499 model has 16 gigabytes of storage. A $599 model comes with 32 gigabytes.
Mozilla demoed the first commercial build of the Firefox OS for mobile in Barcelona. Mozilla also announced Sony, LG, and Huawei will join Alcatel and ZTE in making phones that run the Firefox OS. First devices will come mid-year from América Móvil, Deutsche Telekom, Telefonica, and Telenor, with other markets, actually about 17 different carriers, following soon after.
HP has introduced the HP Slate, an Android tablet at Mobile World Congress. The 7-inch HP Slate will be available in the U.S. starting in April. It'll start at a base of $169, which of course is less than Google's own Nexus 7, which starts at $199. The Slate has some interesting specs. 1.5 gigahertz dual-core ARM Cortex A9 processor is running Jelly Bean. There's a 3-megapixel rear-facing camera, VGA camera on the front, and some other extras include embedded Beats audio, the HP ePrint app for home and on-the-go printing, and a micro USB port allows for the transfer of files.
Asus announced the PadPhone Infinity. It's the next in its line of handsets that fit into a tablet-like dock. The Infinity runs Android 4.2, has a 5-inch 1080p screen with 441 pixels per inch, and the phone and dock combo will cost £799 or around 999 euros when it goes on sale in Europe this April. Asus separately announced the Phone Pad. This is not a dock, but a 7-inch tablet that can make phone calls. Phone Pad comes to the UK between April and June and is expected to cost around £179 or 219 euros, $249 in Asia.
GM is bringing LTE to its OnStar service thanks to a partnership with AT&T. The first cars equipped with LTE will be Model 2015 vehicles available in Canada and the United States. How much will this cost you? Well, GM hasn't announced pricing, but they did say that there will be different user tiers for different services.
Now, with all those phones coming out, you might want to be finding a way to afford some new stuff. That's why our sponsor is important to know about. Thanks to Gazelle for sponsoring Tech News today. If you get a new phone, new iPhone, new Samsung Galaxy S, maybe you're looking forward to a new Samsung Galaxy S coming up in March, and maybe you got a new iPad or a new MacBook, before you give away your old gadgets, find out what it's worth to sell them to Gazelle. It's extra cash you can get, a gift to give yourself. Gazelle makes selling last year's gadgets fast and simple, so if you don't have to go through the hassle, here's what you do. You go to Gazelle.com. That's Gazelle.com. Tell Gazelle the condition. They'll even buy broken iPhones and iPads in some cases and get a risk-free offer for your gadgets. You might as well go and do it just to see what you're going to get, because you can lock in the quote for 30 days while you decide, and then once you do decide, you get paid fast by check or by PayPal. Go to Gazelle.com now. Get an offer on your iPhone, your Android phone, your BlackBerry phone, your iPad, other Apple products. Do it today, because, man, that stuff does not get more valuable over time, unless you wait 50 years. And you can get paid in cash. Payment is fast within a few days of the item being received. It's risk-free. Also, Gazelle does wipe your data for free. Gazelle has paid $50 million to over 500,000 customers. You can be one of them. Sell your last year's gadgets today at Gazelle.com, and we thank them for their continuing support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to discuss the stories of the day, we're happy to have Ron Richards, co-host of All About Android, along with us, and baseball fan. You enjoying spring training so far?
I'm trying to. It's just I haven't got a chance to actually watch a game yet, but I'm very excited it's back and spring is coming.
I just paid for the upgrade to the MLB app this weekend, so I'm excited.
Yep. Yeah, no, now you got to update the app, see what new functionality they're going to add. They're always adding little things. But, yeah, that's the only way I watch baseball now, because I'm a Met fan in San Francisco, so I need that to watch my games. So
it's a hard road. I admire your perseverance. Let's start off talking about LG acquiring WebOS from HP. It looks like essentially they're going to get the source code, related documentation, whatever that means, some engineering talent, so they'll actually get some of the offices that WebOS operates out of, and the WebOS websites. They're licensing a lot of the uses of WebOS, including some of the Palm-related patents, but HP's holding on to those patents. Those are valuable. HP will retain the cloud services division. Now, Nilay Patel had a good article explaining this. What's happening here is the app catalog, the updating system, the back-end services of WebOS will stay with HP. LG is buying this to be used with its smart TVs. They didn't have a lot to say about what they're going to do with it. They did say they will continue to support Palm users, and they didn't rule out the possibility that down the road they might put WebOS on a phone. LG's CTO, Dr. Scott On, said that LG could use Android together with WebOS, but he thinks WebOS is better in some of the user experiences like Card UI. So it's possible they could turn WebOS into some sort of Sense UI type of situation, which people have speculated on before. Now, John Biggs at TechCrunch wrote a big article saying, look, WebOS is not coming back. Get over it. It's truly dead now. HP looks like it's going to be more serious about cloud in this move. They want to be an enterprise server, and they don't want to be on the client side. What do you think LG is going to do with this? A, they just got the client side, and B, they're putting it in a TV. Ron, you got a guess at this?
It's a head scratcher. I mean, if anything, you look at the TV space, and I wonder if they did a cost analysis as to what would it cost to create a new OS that can compete with Google TV or Samsung Smart TV stuff, and kind of throw up their hands and go, well, we can just buy this and repurpose it. So I'm wondering if this is like a lazy move just to get a quick entry into the TV market, and not have to pay Google licensing fees for Google TV.
Yeah, I mean, they already have some smart TV platforms. Maybe they say they like the user interface, but I don't see how the card user interface works well on a TV. Ayaz, you got any stabs at this?
I'm pretty sure that HP probably gave it away at a really low price because HP doesn't need WebOS anymore. They don't seem to be. I mean, even though they say they're committed and they're going to keep developing or keep things running in the back end, I mean, HP is trying to figure out what to do. What LG is going to do with this, I'm not really even sure because they have a deal with Google. They have Google TV powering their televisions. To have another interface that could be a skin on top of it, maybe that'd be useful for televisions. You could differentiate them. But I don't know how many people really enjoy the experience of smart televisions over set-top boxes because those TVs just can't handle these operating systems just yet.
It does seem like it's a really good move for HP. They're probably getting some money out of this. They're certainly getting some licensing fees out of it. And they get to point to what they've finally done with WebOS, which has just been lingering since they open sourced it. Sarah, you're looking at maybe getting an LG TV down the road. Is that something that, I'm not saying you're looking at it, but that would be on the shelves. Would that be something that would be appealing to you?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'm interested in this whole LG Silicon Valley lab. The WebOS team is going to make up the heart and soul of the lab. Obviously, LG is at least somewhat interested in putting together a smart TV experience that will set it apart. The whole WebOS and Android together thing is confusing to me, but maybe it's sort of like, dip the toe in the water and see if there's anything that we can come up with that's really, really cool without, abandoning Android altogether. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as smart TVs go, we have a long way to go. I mean, the bar is not that high right now. So I'm interested to see, is the user interface using WebOS going to make an LG TV really, really attractive? If so, they're going to sell a lot of them.
The one thing you can't say is that Palm has been sold again because it's now been split up even more. It's just divided. It's now, there's a little bit of Palm in all of us, essentially. It's just disperses into the tech world. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with something positive for him. Let's move on to this ridiculously large Samsung Galaxy Note phone.
Let's go ahead and do that. Samsung unveiled the Galaxy Note 8.0. It's got a 1.6 gigahertz Exynos quad-core processor, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 1280 by 800 display. Will run Android 4.1.2. But the big hook about this device is that it's not just a tablet. One model is also going to be a phone that's going to have an HSPA Plus radio. There's going to be an LTE model and a Wi-Fi only model are currently in the works. Pricing and availability, though, they weren't announced. And then Asus also introduced, as Tom mentioned, the phone pad, which is not the pad phone. This is a 7-inch tablet that includes phone functionality. So that really means for both these tablets is that they have an ear speaker. So you can hold up these things to your head if you want to. The phone pad's $250, but it's running on an Intel processor, 1 gigabyte of RAM, Android 4.1, and an HSPA Plus radio. Ron, what do you think about 7 inches or larger on these? Effectively are just gigantic phones. It's like holding a phone book to your face.
Well, listen, we talk about this a lot on Android Show, Jason, on All About Android. Jason and I talk about it, and we're pretty much through the looking glass now because 7 inches was really the threshold for at least for me. Anything under 7 inch was a phone. Anything above 7 inch was a tablet. And now what we and I've been talking about for a while that we're going to see these devices become tablets or computers that also can be phones versus a phone that is a tablet, if that makes any sense. And that's exactly what's happened. We knew this was going to come eventually, and now it's just ridiculous. The moment I see somebody with an 8-inch Galaxy Note up to their ear, I'm going to laugh because it's just, but if you have a Bluetooth earpiece and other peripherals, it can become a viable device. Like we were talking pre-show, a friend of mine moved to the Galaxy Note from iOS because he has a Bluetooth headset. He has no problem using it. He loves the tablet functionality of it and the ability to have a larger space. Clearly, there's a desire for this kind of thing. It's just when are we going to stop calling them phones and just own up to the fact that they are tablets that have phone capability?
Well, I think it's funny too. Is like we keep sort of making the whole phone up to the face. It's 8 inches. That's crazy. It's like Ron said, I rarely even hold up my small phone because I use my headset. It's easier to talk that way and it isolates the audio better. I think in most cases, that's exactly what people will be doing. You know, you're holding the tablet down here and you're doing whatever you need to do. And we're still at the point now where people say, I need the phone capability. You know, my alternative options, the Skypes and the FaceTimes or this or that is not quite enough for us. I still want a phone, at least, you know, for the next cycle of how long I'll have this device, 2 years or whatever. It doesn't seem to be going backwards to me. I think it's just a tablet that does a little bit more.
And also, I think it's important to note that you're seeing a trend, and I know probably a lot of us because we are power users and that sort of thing, but I'm using my phone less and less. I mean, really, the only people that call me are bill collectors and my mom. So, you know, everyone else I'm text messaging or emailing, you know, so I'm actually physically talking on the phone much less.
And that's exactly it. They're appealing to different types of users. There are users out there like you, Ron, like me, like we hardly make calls, but we, you know, certain people always want a tablet on them. So it doesn't make much sense to carry around the little phone just so that when they make a phone call, they don't look weird. Like carry around the tablet that you always use. And if you have to make that one phone call every week, you're able to do it with that device. They appeal to different people. You know, the people in the business world that make lots of phone calls and need that, they aren't going to be walking around probably with an 8-inch tablet that makes phone calls.
I want text messaging on my tablet. I know there's iMessage and stuff like that. There's lots of ways to do it, but I would like to have the native text messaging I get from my carrier on my tablet. So I'm more excited about that possibility in this kind of stuff than voice service, because like you guys, I don't use it for calls all that often anymore.
Tom, do you think the carrier is going to get super excited for the fact they can charge you for a data and a phone plan on these larger devices? Because as of right now, pretty much they're all just data devices, so they can't charge you as much. But once they say, hey, it's a phone, there's an extra fee.
Actually, I think the voice, I honestly think, and we'll talk about this a little later with WebRTC and what Firefox is doing, but I think voice service is on its way out. You know, they already kind of commoditized it as part of your basic service connection fee with these share everything plans here in the US. So right now you just get unlimited voice and text for $40 a month from Verizon, and then you pay for the data. So I think voice service is, we're going to look back on this and go, well, why wouldn't you have your primary way of connecting by voice on every device that you have? Right. It seems so backwards to only have it on a so-called phone.
Well, I mean, we're in an awkward. I think we're in an awkward transition state where the way we use phones is changing, and then also the way that we're processing that data is going to change. But unfortunately, I bet you the carriers are going to lag, and they're going to squeeze every nickel out of us. So at least in the U.S., at least.
Well, I can't wait till they add ear speakers to laptops, so I can just hold that thing up. That's just my next. It's the same shape. It works for my face. I think that's going to be in the next X1 from Lenovo.
Hold on, I got to take this.
That didn't look weird to me, Tom. That looked normal.
Well, that's because you're huge. You're a giant man. Let's talk about Barnes & Noble. We mentioned this quickly in the news fuse, but are we looking at a Barnes & Noble split? Are there going to be no more Nooks? What's going on with this, Sarah?
Well, anything's possible right now. The New York Times, a lot happened in the Barnes & Noble world today. New York Times first reported that the e-reader and tablet hardware efforts from Barnes & Noble might kind of be on the outs. They've got a source that says that they're not completely getting out of the hardware business, but that executives basically realize that they need to shift focus from low-margin hardware to licensing what they call the crown jewel content to other platforms. So that's, the actual book content. They're announcing their Q3 results this Thursday. Barnes & Noble has not had a good few last quarters and have already warned that they're going to be bigger than expected losses in the Nook division. So again, that hardware division. This morning, Barnes & Noble acknowledged that its founder, chairman of the board, and the largest single shareholder with about 30% of common stock, Leonard Riggio, wants to buy out the retailer's consumer bookstore chain, which is almost 700 stores, 689 stores, but not Nook Media LLC, which is the Nook e-reader and the tablet business. He's submitted regulatory filings, so it's not a done deal by any means, but he would like to do this, and now the Barnes & Noble team has to decide if this is a good idea. And Riggio was again the founder of Barnes & Noble, and back in the 1980s and 1990s, he was responsible for making it this huge retail giant that that's the legacy brand that it still is sort of known as today. So this is kind of weird. It's the New York Times saying, well, the Barnes & Noble knows that the hardware business is probably not the future. Then you got the founder saying, yeah, I don't really want the hardware business. I want your retail business. I want all that good stuff. So if indeed he gets what he wants, if the retail business is spun out, I'm wondering what's left for the hardware side of things, the Nook Media side of things, because that seems to be the weak spot. Ron, what do you think? Do you think Barnes & Noble can do anything with a hardware-only business?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting. And this is something that I keep a close eye on because my day job, I work in publishing, particularly comic book publishing. So I watch a lot of these stuff that's happening with Nook and Kindle and the iPad and things like that very closely. And I've been watching Barnes & Noble for the past year. Now, it's important to note that they had already spun out the Nook business into a separate company, like you mentioned. So Nook Media LLC was spun out last year. And from my understanding, that was Barnes & Noble's kind of big strategy, was that they were going to develop their digital business aside from the retail business. But yet, from a consumer standpoint, they're still tied together. So a little confusing. This makes it a little more confusing and basically makes me think that Riggio doesn't have faith in the future of the digital side of things and just wants to focus on the lagging retail business, which, if you noticed a couple of weeks ago, they announced that they are closing about a third of their stores over the next few years because basically as Barnes & Noble retail outlets, as leases end up on their retail locations, they're not going to renew the leases. So Barnes & Noble is not looking good, not looking very strong at all. Whether or not they're able to focus on the hardware division and take that money from Microsoft and take that money from Pearson and make a competing device is the big question. Up till now, they haven't been. They've always been the kind of the trailer behind the iPad and the Kindle. We've talked about it a lot in All About Android, about how Barnes & Noble has this loyal customer base that goes in the store and then they see the Nook and, okay, that's my tablet I need to get because I shop at Barnes & Noble. But with so many retail stores lagging, they don't have that much of a base to fall back on. If they had rolled this out years ago when Barnes & Noble was in every town and was a huge, kind of retail force, it might be another story. But it might be just the fact that due to the economic indicators and their business stuff, they've missed the mark. It's curious. I honestly don't know what's going to happen on the Nook side of things. I think too much money has been put into it to abandon it. But I also don't think that the Nook layer on top of Android is strong enough to support a software-only business, much less a media distribution business.
Honestly, I think that would be a mistake to buy the consumer business without the digital bookstore. The getting out of making the Nook tablets makes a lot of sense to me. It's just not working for them. It was a good effort, a good try. But if I go into a Barnes & Noble store, I should be able to buy all the best e-readers that are available. I should be able to buy tablets that can be used for e-reading. They should be getting into that side of things. And they should be selling digital books both online and in the stores. That seems to be the growth opportunities there. So I understand them backing away from tablets. That part makes sense. The idea that you would just take, and I know they were prepping that to be easily saleable, as you mentioned, Ron. They kind of cordoned it off, even though it's still wholly owned by Barnes & Noble. And there was a lot of rumors that Microsoft was going to go in as be one of the partners in a joint venture there. But to just get rid of it entirely and separate them entirely seems like you're betting on the wrong horse again.
Well, there are two things that are kind of at play there. I mean, is it any surprise that Leonard Riggio, who was a success in the 80s and 90s, wants to back away from a future technology? This might be a case of someone who, is falling back on what he knows, which is retail business, which is fine, but is, kind of giving a blind eye to what the next generation is going to be. And that's been a big failing of all the media companies, whether it's books or music or whomever. The other problem is that the publishing industry is so tied up in previous agreements and contracts and all these and rights and digital rights. They're just now untangling them and figuring out how to make it work. And we've seen some successes in the ebook space. But don't you think that the edge that Barnes & Noble would have over Amazon is that brick and mortar presence and the opportunity to buy a book at Barnes & Noble and unlock the ebook at the same time? You have to
totally
capitalize that.
I'm right there with you. They need to be moving into digital while taking advantage of what they have left of their physical presence advantage. Let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Lantronix. Whether you're at home or if you're in the office, you get something on your iPhone or your iPad. We get documents on our iPhones and iPads constantly. It can be a challenge to print them. Especially, if you've got one of those AirPrint compatible printers, then it's not so bad. But if you don't, you're out of luck. I have gotten one of the Xprint servers here from Lantronix. And I was a little skeptical, honestly, when I first got it. I'm like, networking and printing, et cetera. Xprint Server enables wireless printing from your iPad, iPhone, or iPod Touch, and it eliminates the need to print through apps. It's native. And you're like, this must be some really complicated install. You don't have to install software. You don't have to email yourself documents for printing. It works with the USB or network printer you already have. Whether it's wired or wireless, you print directly from the iOS native menu. It just sees, oh, okay, Lantronix, that's an AirPrint server. Lantronix sends the print job to your existing printer. No apps to buy, no software to load. Compatible with more than 4,000 top brand printers, and it's automatic setup. You just open it, plug it in, and print. I've done it. I'm not just reading the copy like you do. You open it, you plug it in, you can print. Advanced configuration is available if you want to get, if you're a tweaker, you want to get in there and tweak stuff, you get a web interface. One X print server can support multiple printers and virtually unlimited iOS devices. Allows your USB printers to become network printers. So it's great for the home. It's great for the office. For $99, the Home Edition will give you support for up to 8 USB and 2 network printers. Most homes, that's more than you'll need. Office Edition is $199, supports up to 8 USB and unlimited network printers, and includes some network admin features like Active Directory support. So you want to learn more, go to xprintserver.com/twit. You can find out more information or buy it there. And we've got a special offer. Use the code TWIT to receive free shipping on your order. Remember, visit xprintserver.com/twit. And at checkout, enter the code TWIT. We thank Lantronix for their continuing support of Tech News Today. All right, let's talk about Google potentially getting into competition with Spotify.
That's right. The Financial Times reports that Google's working on a streaming music service. Now, right now, Google obviously has a music download service. And the streaming service, though, is in negotiation stages with the record labels. The service would likely have both a paid and a free tier, and the free tier would be supported by ads like so many others. Sources are telling The Verge that any launch of such a service is still months away, though. A source also tells The Verge that a sticking point of these negotiations is Google's, quote, uninspired anti-piracy efforts. Ron, there are a lot of other streaming downloading services out there, like Xbox Music. Would Google's entry into the streaming world make them a leader out of the gate?
I don't know if it would be a leader, but Lord knows they'd have my business. I mean, I just recently am going through this right now where I'm an active Google Music user. I've got all 18,000 songs in my MP3 library up on Google Music, but I find myself popping over to Spotify, popping over to Rdio to try new albums, to figure out which ones I want to buy, things like that. I've got my issues with Spotify. Right now, Rdio is my one of choice. But if Google Music had this, I would stay in the Google Music ecosystem and probably make a lot more album purchases directly by staying in that one presence. This is great news. I hope they can work it out.
Sarah, I know you're big into streaming music, but could Google do an all-in-one service that would be something that everybody would like? Because right now, Spotify seems to be the leader in streaming. Slacker's trying to rebrand, but downloads are pretty much iTunes and Amazon. If Google had both of them together, like Microsoft does, would this make a huge difference?
Yeah, I'm with Ron, where if Google can do an all-in-one solution, I'm just more inclined not to leave Google. I spend so much time in the Google Drive atmosphere alone, and as services, Google's pretty good at that. What they're also good at is making money off of advertising. I mean, that's what Google does best. So if Google can undercut Spotify and Rdio and say, okay, well, you guys are offering a mobile subscription, sort of all you can listen tier for $10 a month. We'll offer the same thing for $7 a month because we're Google and we can make money other ways. Then they'll have a ton of business just right off the bat. Because for me, I paid $10 a month because I really like music. But it's kind of steep, and there are a lot of people who say, I don't like music enough to care to part with that kind of money every single month. So I think that Google's size and power really puts it in an interesting position here.
I think there's also a opportunity because Google has not shown the ability to undercut in the Google Play and the Google Music in the Play Store. I buy my MP3s from Amazon because time after time again, I go to look at an album and I price compare. And on Amazon, an album might be $7.99 and it's $9.49 on Google Play. And so I go buy the MP3s from Amazon and upload them up to Google Play. So if they can use the streaming service as a way to ensure album purchases or merge the two together, that should be very attractive to the record labels. And then they worried about their uninspired anti-piracy efforts. A streaming service would solve that. I mean, we've seen piracy go down with the emergence of these streaming services. So that's a way to counteract that piracy.
Tom, do you think that Google could actually put it together? I mean, Play right now is actually pretty mature. A couple years ago when they were trying Google Music, or 2011 when they were trying this, it was kind of like Google's step into the consumer space. Now that they've got the Play Store set up, they've got their streaming stuff together, at least when you're streaming your own music, do you think that they're mature enough to handle both a streaming and download service?
Well, look, if anybody can handle a cloud service, it's somebody like Google. I mean, I have no doubts that Google can put together a perfectly adequate music streaming service. What I want somebody to do, and this doesn't look like it's it, is just make the whole thing a lot simpler. Make it so that I can buy my music or select my music anywhere I want and then access it anywhere I want without having to worry about, oh, wait, I bought it at Amazon, but I had to put it in Google Play. And, oh, well, I created a playlist here and I ported it over to this other service, but not everything works because that service doesn't have everything. It's too complicated and things just don't fit very well if you want to create something lasting. So I don't see this as any kind of change to that. That's what I'm looking for from music.
Yeah, I've tested out iTunes Match and uploading to Google Music, trying out Amazon's Cloud Player, Spotify, everything, every option you could think of. There's not one cohesive solution just yet. I'm kind of curious if Google can crack that, because if they can, that'd be a huge opportunity, because I would like to have one simple solution. It just doesn't exist yet.
It drives me nuts because each of those services have some element that I really like. You know, like Spotify's got a great library, but it doesn't. Their desktop app doesn't have a mini player, and Rdio's desktop app has a mini player, but not as much of the library as Spotify. You know, like it just seems that they pick and choose either there. And if one can emerge and kind of make the Uber kind of music app, then I would totally sign up for it. And I think Google could do it if they focus on it, not just try to play catch up.
They need to assemble like Voltron into one magic music service. Well, I mentioned this earlier. Firefox is showing off something that AT&T is calling Web Phone. It's basically a combination of WebRTC, Ericsson's web communication gateway, and AT&T's API platform for voice calls. So what it does is allow you to make phone calls, video calls, and text messages from your browser. Now, it's a proof of concept right now. AT&T doesn't have an API out for everyone yet. They do say they plan an alpha version in the near future. But the key is that everything's done over data, and it doesn't have to matter what data you're using. Your phone number follows you as a web app. Mozilla obviously has their Firefox OS. We mentioned that earlier. But their demonstration here, Peter Bright had an article, and big thanks to Habituela Condolce in the subreddit for pointing it out, where he points out, like, this could turn the carriers into dumb pipes. Now, AT&T's behind this, and obviously AT&T doesn't want to become a dumb pipe. But when we were talking about the Note and the tablet and phone service, wouldn't it be fantastic if you could have your current phone number with your current carrier available in a web interface, so it didn't matter what device you're using, right?
I mean, that sounds a lot like Google Music. I mean, Google Voice to me, actually. That's how I've been using it.
Google Music.
Not Google Music. Sorry, Google Voice. Because I've been using Google Voice for years, and that keeps that one number everywhere, and I have the applications or the web app to do any of that on a computer and otherwise. I don't know whether Mozilla can pull this off. If Google had trouble with this, I don't know how Firefox OS or Mozilla is going to be like, hey, carriers, we have this great idea. We don't want you to actually be paying attention. We're going to be taking care of everything in the browser. I mean, besides, Google Voice exists already, so how is this any different other than its open standards?
That's a really good question. Ron or Sarah, either one. Do you guys have a thought about how this is different, why Google Voice hasn't been able to catch on more?
Well, I think the challenge with Google Voice, and Jason can back me up on this because we've been through this a lot, is that Google's Voice is using Google's data infrastructure and the app infrastructure, but it's still dependent somewhat on the voice and SMS and things like that. They still don't have good handling of MMS. It's all those legacy kind of systems that need to be come into play. I love the idea of going fully data, like you said, Tom, to go to access from anywhere, be able to text or send photos or anything like that. It all seems to make sense to go over data, but as someone who works in development and works with developers, I'm skeptical of doing it in the browser because that's so much data going through that data object model. And up to this point, the browsers have not been able to handle it. I mean, we've seen HTML5 as this supposed to be this panacea that will handle everything. We'll be able to make web apps and they'll work, but it hasn't taken on yet. There's a reason why we're all sticking to whether it's Android or iOS or whatever app platform, OS platform, because web apps aren't there yet.
Sarah, if your current carrier came to you and said, look, we've got this new service. You can now take your current phone number that you have on your current phone, and you can access it in a web interface. Would that be more attractive than Google Voice or Skype?
Well, because I have such a hate-hate relationship with sort of the concept of that with Apple's Messages app, which is the worst thing in the whole world. And there's no synchronicity between any of my devices and that. I am very skeptical. If texting and phone calls and video calls could somehow all be in a nice, easy to use app that I can access with a browser tab. I like that idea as an option, but I haven't seen it work yet. And in concept, it sounds like a headache to me.
Well, the problem with messages is they're trying to tack on their own service to your existing text message service, whereas this would say, this is your phone number. This is your current service. You can just access it over data. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah,
if it works.
Okay, it's
works,
just not something I feel like I'm sitting around wanting so badly.
Well, I wish I could get my text messages on any device, and I wish I could make phone calls. And yes, you can. Ayaz is totally right. You can put the service together now, but you have to port a phone number over, and it doesn't exactly work the same way on different devices. Like, there's a lot of promise here.
The data management that has to happen for device sync is incredibly complicated, and I've been struggling with this as well. I want data sync on my email, on my text messages, on my phone contacts, and all stuff like that. And Google's been the only person who's come close to it. But when you factor in the phone functionality and things like that, and like I said, those legacy systems, and I know WebRTC will help with this, but it becomes, like Sarah mentioned, immensely difficult because you might get a text on one device and it hasn't synced to the other device, and then you've got that data lag, and that's the moment it all breaks down and stops working.
All right, let's go on to House of Cards, racking up big numbers, but are they ratings numbers or some other kinds of numbers?
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting article over at the New York Times. David Carr wrote it, and he's pretty much saying, listen, big data is factoring into companies now being able to sort of choose hits. Obviously, historically, if Hollywood could just make a hit, then we wouldn't have all these sitcoms, that launch in September and then are canceled, 8 shows later. So the idea is that House of Cards, obviously, it's definitely what would be considered a hit. They've gotten great viewership numbers, a lot of, talk and buzz around the fact that it's a really good show. Netflix says it's the most streamed piece of content in the United States and 40 other countries that have access to Netflix. And so if you look at the numbers, Netflix has 27 million subscribers in the US alone. It has 33 million worldwide. A lot of these users have streamed David Fincher movies. He is the director of House of Cards because Netflix has access to all of that information. So they already know, okay, well, this guy's a respected director. They know that the star of House of Cards, Kevin Spacey, people like to watch his movies on Netflix. They know that the original British version of House of Cards was pretty popular. People say, oh yeah, you got to watch that. That's a really good show. So it's sort of like the data just shows House of Cards is a good investment. It has highly probable popularity. Yeah, if you look at a Venn diagram of all the components, it's sort of like kind of a can't lose type of situation. Netflix, though, is crunching all sorts of other data. I mean, they're looking at 30 million plays a day for people who are starting and stopping content. They know when you pause. They know when you rewind. They know when there's something that you might want to skip over. They know who's rating what as far as movies and TV shows. They knew what people are searching for, the time of day that the shows are being watched, on which devices. All of that stuff factors into, okay, well, what is the kind of content that we can serve up to these people? What's also interesting is that there are viewer-submitted tags that work as metadata, basically just to describe the show. This is something that Netflix is using to now pick original programming. And Joris Evers, who's the company's director of global corporate communications, says basically if you put all this stuff down on the table, there are 33 million different versions of Netflix because, of course, what might be tailored to me as a show that I would like to watch based on my watching habits thus far is different than Ron's or Tom's or Ayaz's. So I think it's really interesting to think about big data as a way for a company like Netflix or Amazon, who's obviously doing similar stuff here, or even a cable company like AMC, who's had some hits lately. Are we headed for a creative process that is determined more than ever by statistics? Ron, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think the examples given both in Netflix and Amazon, I know for example, Amazon has a division called Amazon Studios, and they are technically a film and television development studio, and they are using things like motion comics and film shorts and comic books and books to test audience concepts before they greenlight them into becoming actual productions. So they're gathering as much data as they can before they make decisions on that. I think the Venn diagram approach with Netflix is great in that they've got all that data that says this is what people like, this is what people do. The only X factor is quality. Is that you can look at that Venn diagram and say, okay, David Fincher, the British version, Kevin Spacey, great, let's put it all together and we'll make a show. And nothing accounts for Kevin Spacey's bad Southern accent. So the actual products that come out of it, and that's the tough
I don't know what you mean, Ron.
And the tough thing is that you can't use stats to predict creative quality. So as long as that aspect of the business isn't being forgotten about, that data can fuel those creative decisions and ultimately give more possible successful properties. But you can't rely on the data alone.
Yeah, I think what's interesting here. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to say, to that end, John Landgraf, who's the president and the GM of FX, which has, successful shows, Sons of Anarchy comes to mind, says, yeah, big data is definitely a factor, but data can only tell you what people already like, not what people are going to like. And certain shows like, a Mad Men, for example, was so sort of out of left field. Yeah, there's not a lot of data that would predict that so many of us would have ended up liking the show because there was nothing like that beforehand.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't account for, and Mad Men is a great example, but it's almost too much of a good example because it is a hit and it has found an audience. But take a show, and I know I'm nerd baiting here, but take a show like Firefly that Fox didn't have belief in and didn't back it and only got a short exposure, but we know has a huge audience that everyone loves it. So you got to have that opportunity for surprises to happen. And if the data tells you that a sci-fi Western by Joss Whedon wouldn't be a success, although now I think it would tell you that would be a success, sometimes it takes that one development executive who says, I believe in this project, I'm going to push it through.
All right, let's finish up with a randomizer. Victor Mativitz, a computer science grad student at the University of Illinois at Chicago, has built a Spidey suit. I'm not really kidding here. That's what they call it in the Discovery article about this. You dug this up, right?
Yeah, I found this. And now what this is it's a suit that you wear that uses ultrasonic reflections to determine what's around it. Now, it's so sensitive that the users who were testing it can actually navigate with their eyes closed. And in the tests themselves, people, I believe, are throwing... These people are blindfolded, suited up, and then they're asked to tell if they can feel attackers coming. So they have these cardboard throwing stars that are being thrown, and they can sense when they're coming. Now, the practical applications would be more like if you're riding a bicycle and you couldn't see something behind you. But I don't know who wouldn't want a Spidey sense if they could get it. Ron?
I can't help but laugh because it's just, the idea of them testing by throwing things at people is kind of funny to me. But,
excuse me, I have that reversed. It's the blindfolded person who would throw the throwing star at the direction of an attacker. That's what was going on. Interesting. Yeah, but the idea this kind of reminds me of some of these self-aware cars, and the idea to predict something that's going to happen to you before it happens or something like that would be great. I kind of put this in the same bucket as the cloaking device jackets that they have.
I love the idea of having a sixth sense where I'm like, I've got my little spider suit on. I'm bicycling, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, there's a car coming, right? That's brilliant.
Or what about somebody who can't see? That just seems great. Safer. Put on the spider suit before you go out into traffic.
It's kind of like Daredevil senses. Somebody's talking about just look up from your cell phone. That could be the other option. But then you never have to look up because you would know it's coming at you. Something's happening.
It could save texters.
Yes.
It's all kinds of. Let's take a break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website, a blog, a portfolio, and now an online store. That's right. Squarespace introduces a new commerce solution. Allows you to instantly create a store and start selling products. We're doing it on Sword & Laser, which we use Squarespace to produce. Squarespace Commerce provides powerful and flexible e-commerce So you can sell real things like T-shirts, merchandise, but you can also sell digital things, MP3s, ebooks. Fast merchant account setup. You can accept payments right away, credit or debit cards. Single interface for order management. Track those orders. Provide customer email updates when stuff ships. Print shipping labels, all that good stuff. Squarespace Commerce is included with the Business Plan subscription, which starts at $24 a month when you sign up for a year, or it's $30 a month if you go month to month. And Squarespace gives you and your website still the best mobile experience. Develop templates with mobile-ready designs, which means your site automatically restructures to look great on any device. Somebody's got a smartphone, a tablet, a computer, a very large phone that's 8 inches, or a phone pad. It doesn't matter. Your site's going to look great. And, of course, this means you get a mobile-ready store with the new commerce solution. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform integrating with all your website needs. You get domain names there. Get great design from them. You get development, commerce now, hosting, 24/7 customer support. Sign up for a free account right now. And you may think, well, I don't know if I want to give them all that information. You don't have to give them a credit card. You don't have to give them anything but an email address. That's just to make sure that you're a real person. Try it out. Start building your website. And if you decide to purchase it, use the offer code TNT2 and get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. That's monthly or annual plans. And don't forget, with that annual plan, you get a free domain name registration. That's squarespace.com. Use that offer code TNT2. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Sarah, what's on the calendar?
Tom, I'm glad you asked. BioShock Infinite comes out tomorrow, February 25th. And also tomorrow, Lenovo's education-focused ThinkPad Chromebook will start to become available in schools.
Got a couple of emails to look at and incoming.
Incoming message.
We got a message from Dr. Neil. He says, hey, TNT crew, this is in reference to Tom's accusation of statistical flimflammery on the Cohen and Company report that nearly a quarter of Netflix subscribers have dropped pay TV. I'm a statistics professor, and your comments were my example in today's class on estimating proportions from samples. 80 people who dropped pay TV out of 346 Netflix subscribers surveyed makes us 95% confident that the true proportion of Netflix subscribers who dropped pay TV is between 19% and 28%, a 4% margin of error. Even at the low end, that would be a surprising number. My class of 35 19-year-olds thought you should know.
That's great. No, Dr. Neil is doing a much better job of expressing what I was trying to express, which is you can look at this and say it's a very low number, but even as a very low number, there's still some significance there. And what Dr. Neil did is like, I'm actually a statistician. I can tell you exactly what that significance is, and it's good. Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Oh, got another email from Denzel O'Neill in Australia who says, I just thought I might put in my 2 cents about Google Glass. I have less than 14% eyesight, and I was hoping that Google Glass would be able to store a bank of pictures of my friends and have them tagged so my glasses will inform me if any of my friends are nearby, or even beep to let me know that there's something at head height, which my white cane is not going to sense, and I'm about to get a bloody nose. Thanks for your time. Denzel, have you heard about the spider outfit?
Exactly. Spider outfit with the Google Glass on? I'm telling you, we're all superheroes in the future.
By the way, did anyone see Sergey Brin at the Oscars last night wearing his Google Glasses? Because I did.
No, I missed that.
Not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He wasn't, nobody interviewed him, but like I saw him walking behind a couple of stars at like at the Vanity Fair party afterwards. He was definitely wearing them.
I have a feeling he had them implanted because I don't see him without them.
They're very comfortable, perhaps.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for the show. Thank you, Ron Richards, for joining us today. Let folks know what you're up to, where they can find you online. Of course, watch you on All About Android, all that good stuff.
Yes, thanks for having me on. This is a blast. Yeah, you can find, if you like my babbling, you can go to about.me/RonXO, and you can find my links to Twitter, Google+, Facebook, all that fun stuff. And if you want to see what I do by day, check out Image Comics. I work for that great comics publishing company that puts out the Walking Dead comic, as well as Saga, as well as some other great comic books. So go to imagecomics.com and check all that out.
Love Image Comics. I'm so jealous of your day job. That's awesome.
I kind of don't believe it myself, to be honest with you, but yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Don't forget to head over to our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. Let us know what stuff you want us to cover each and every day. That's one of the ways we decide what we're going to put in discussion, what we're going to put in the news fuse. And you can also find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, or give us a call, leave us a voicemail, 260-TNT-SHOW. Mac OS Ken Ray joins us tomorrow. We'll see you then.